Say something to say about it.
Well, Country Priest was one of the formative films that interested me in films because I came from a church background and didn't see movies as a child. So I started to see them as a college student, and that was one of the first ones I saw. And so I started to realize that there was a link between my religious background and this profane thing called the cinema. That they weren't completely separate. You could cross back and forth. And out of that realization, I wrote a book on Dotted River Country Priest and other films. So that was a point of access. That was the music that was playing when I walked in the room of film. I went another direction for many decades, sort of did the devil's work. But I still was kind of interested in that sort of film. And finally circled back around to it. And because, one, I was getting older, two, the times were getting more eschatological, and three, the budgets were getting smaller.
You wrote about transcendental cinema in many years before, and I realized that you're working or revisiting the transcendental cinema, and you're looking at the works done by new.
Yeah, that book will be published, I think, in March at UCal Press.
Yes, and I'm curious to know, for example, the approach of new filmmakers who are interested in transcendental cinema. In what ways, for example, impacted your thinking or reflection when you are trying to make this movie?
That's a pretty big question.
Yeah.
You look at, when you're dealing with withholding techniques, which is what you talk about when you talk about spiritual cinema. Because most movies are desperate. They're playing music real loud. They're going like this. I love you. I'm going to cut fast. What do you want to see? You want to see some girls? You want to see some cars? Anything. Just don't leave me. This kind of movie just leans back and says, maybe I'm not going to cut for a while. Maybe I'm not going to play any music. Maybe nothing's going to happen for about 5 seconds. And will you lean toward me? And so that's that tricky line between the viewer starting to come toward you because you're withholding, and the viewer getting up and walking out of the theater. That's his other choice. And so that's always the game you play. And there are a collection of probably 10 or 12 withholding devices that filmmakers use. It's like a buffet. But no two directors uses the same combination of withholding devices. Some use incremental camera movement, some use no camera movement, some use planimetric composition. Some are always center punch. There's different ways you can do this, and so that's what. So when you start studying this, you look at how does Angelopoulos do it? How did Bellatar do it? How does what does Wayne Bing do? What is you start looking at all these guys, Tarkovsky, and you start saying, that's how that worked for him. That's how that works for him. What would work for me? And a lot of it at that point starts to become instinctual. It's no different than why is one line funny and why is not another line not funny? You can come up with a theory, but it doesn't really explain it. Like K is funny, like Neil Simon says, K is funny, pick up.
Entertainment and Ethan Hawke you picked for this role because we know about the background of Cedric the Entertainer, the kind of movie that he played, and
but I mean he also has a history of serious drama and stage work too, so it's not the only thing. It's not like I got only a comic. I got an actor and who's also a comic. People tend to pigeonhole people of faith and they have all these cliched categories for them, and so you have to fight against those expectations. And I wanted this to be someone who is friendly but tough, but not someone who's closed-minded, someone who's sympathetic, but also knows how to run a business too. And the very fact that Cedric walks on screen bringing with him the Cedric baggage gives him a leg up on everybody, because the audience is very interested in how he's going to do this, because they haven't quite figured it out. Whereas if it had been, say, another actor, you say, oh, I know how Morgan Freeman's going to play this.
Working with Paul Schrader, because he's very famous for his screenplay. Did he stick to the screenplay, or did he let you, for example, improvise, and how, in general, what was the reason behind your attraction to the screen?
A combination of the two. One, when you have the opportunity to work with, a writer and a director of his stature, it was something you're excited about. For me, again, it's I'm being cast out of, in a role in a movie that I wouldn't normally be necessarily seen for. So that's exciting. And then you have Hawke, like another, this great prolific actor that you're going to be an opportunity to do scenes with. Amanda Seyfried as well. So, but to your question, it was written. I mean, Paul's. It was a story that was passionate, that was close to him. It was one that, when you read it, we all kind of realize that we are challenged by these things. Like, you grow up in a household of some kind of faith, whatever your parents, kind of believe, that's what you believe, and you have to, you kind of grow living that life until you get to an age that you decide, like, oh, I've had a few other life experiences where I don't necessarily adhere to all of those rules, right, that you guys kind of traditionally lived by. And so then these become a question of who you are. And that was interesting. And I thought also for me to, in this day and age too, with the bigger mega churches is, kind of becoming the thing where people have these huge congregations, and you're like, you're kind of this leader amongst leaders. Where is that, cross between being a person of real faith and how's that person also a businessman? Oh, yeah. And so these questions are being asked by Ethan's character, but we throw them on screen for everyone to look at these and go, how do I feel about that? Like, when I go to this big church that used to be a basketball arena, like, how do I feel about that? Like, why am I here for my spiritual thing and there's 30,000 people here? Like, is this guy that good? And so you question that, but you have to believe that person, and that was something that I found attractive about this role. Like, you have to believe him, and then you got to see that he wants to be a great man of faith, a leader, and at the same time he's a businessman, and so you kind of pull that curtain back, and like.
Yeah, I mean, you saw the film, right?
Yeah.
So he says it quite plainly. You don't live in the real world. You're a pastor at a tourist church nobody attends.
Yes, and it's becoming like a touristy environment. You need to attract customers. One of the most amazing scenes is the scenes of flying over the earth. And it happens, it started with, for example, you thought that there might be, for example, erotic tension between them. The woman is on top of it, and you see, you think about that they are going to kiss each other, and now they are flying, and it's something that you couldn't expect in ordinary cases happen. But why you did not move or work more with this transcendental element, this imaginary vision?
Well, I mean, as I said earlier, the film is full of withholding techniques. The camera doesn't move, it's 1-3-3. You're just pushing back, no music. But I knew I was going to jump at the end. I knew I was going to jump. And while I was writing it, I felt that I should prefigure the jump at the end of the second act, and let the audience know that something is going to happen, unexpected. And so then I was thinking, well, what can I do? And then I said, well, what would Tarkovsky do? Well, Tarkovsky would have him levitate. That was his fallback position. He did it in 3 films. Two people are out of bed together, all of a sudden, whoop, up they go. So I said, I'll just levitate him. And then once I had him levitated, I said, well, why don't they take a tour of the world? And they start going through the Edenic world, and everything is beautiful, and then his mind, his polluted mind, starts infecting this rapture, and all he sees is degradation.
No, yes, I particularly liked it because, as I said, it started with what I imagine that could be erotic tension, and then in terms of the elevation, and at the end I wanted to see something, because at most of the cases it seems to me that okay, they are maybe attracted to each other, but they will not go to the, for example, kissing or something like that. But at the end they go, they kiss each other. So maybe you, for example.
Well, what do you think happens at the end of the movie?
At the end of the movies, I think that because of the sacrifice, the pastor decided because of the love that he had for the young girl.
Oh, so you think he's still alive?
Yes. That's a good point.
There's an argument made that as he's on his hands and knees puking out his stomach, he's having an ecstatic vision.
Okay. Yeah, because
she magically appears like an angel.
Yeah, because the other guys tried to came into the room, but he couldn't find any way.
Yeah.
And then suddenly we see that the woman
and also the room is full of light.
Okay.
And the sound goes away.
Yeah, that's very. That's very. Yes. No, I didn't think about it like that.
And I, as the writer, director, I don't wish to preclude any interpretation.
Yeah.
So that I've heard a number of interpretations of the end of the film, and my response to every one is, "You're right." Yeah. And the same thing is sort of true of Taxi Driver. People have different interpretations of the end. I say they're all right. You know, the goal is to open up to make you as a viewer sort of speculate and open up your mind. And that I've always felt that the last scene of a movie should play on the sidewalk in front of the theater. You know, as you're walking out, and all of a sudden the movie's still going on.
Mentality of an environment that could cause, for example, threat for surroundings, or it could become, for example, bomber.
I'm losing you. Between environmentalism
because the guy who wants to suicide is somebody who take a lot or concerns a lot about, for example, environmentalism, and he's somehow connected to for example, somebody's from the church to heal him. So you somehow wanted to make argument that environmentalism in some cases could become, like, for example, dangerous, like a face group.
Well, I mean, there have been, you know, environmentalists are dying.
Okay.
There haven't been any, to my knowledge, jihadist environmental attackers, but I'm sure it's occurred to somebody. And jihadism is in the air. His character says jihadism is everywhere, even here. But what has happened to Toller? He has picked up a virus. You know, he's a sick man, and he's dying of despair. And he tries alcohol, he tries the journal, he tries the rituals of the church, and then he comes across this other thing he can try. This thing this other sick boy had brought to him, this cause of self-sacrifice, of purgation through blood, which is deeply rooted in Christianity from day one, washed in the blood, you know, as it says. And so, is he really an environmentalist, or has he glommed onto this cause to justify his desire to self-sacrifice?
Yeah. Okay.
So the moment he realizes he can't blow up the church because he's not going to kill another boy. He killed his son. He killed that boy Michael, and now there's another boy in her stomach, and she's inside the church. He's not going to kill a third one. So now he has to kill himself without killing her and that boy. So his immediate fallback is, how much can I suffer?
Oh, okay.
You know, I'll wrap myself in barbed wire. I'll drink Drano. You know, but what's the worst things I can do to myself?
Okay.
So I can suffer unto death.
And I have questions about the music or songs that you pick.
Yeah.
For example, Neil Young songs for the funeral, which I particularly like. So I'm curious if you can make comments about the choice of music that you made for this film and the reason.
Well, it's very perverse, you know, singing about fracking at the dispersal of the ashes. But I wanted an environmental song. And I had a connection to Neil Young through the late Jonathan Demme. And so I asked Jonathan to approach Neil, and there's an agent called, and he said, I would do the song, their standard price is $50,000. And he said, how much were you thinking? And I said, well, I was thinking of pro bono.
A small difference.
And he said, let me get back to Neil. I said, the reason Neil Young writes a song like this is so that it gets dispersed. And he doesn't write a song like this for money. He writes a song to communicate. And that's what we're going to do for him. He should be paying us. And so they came back, and we got it for $500.
It's a small. It was a nice little savings.
Okay, and you talk about for example, the ratio in a couple of times, 1.33. So I'm just curious.
Which
the ratio,
133. Yeah.
Yes, 133. So I'm just curious if you can say more about the ratio.
Well, that started with Ida. Have you seen Ida, the black and white Polish film about the nun?
Yes, Ida.
Okay.
Ida.
Yeah, that's 133, and black and white. So when I first thought about doing this, I thought, why would you do it 133 black and white? I wasn't able to do it in black and white because of the delivery requirement, but I did do it in 133, and it's just a way of telling the viewer this is different. Right from the start, this is different. Free yourself from certain preconditioned expectations because you're going to watch a different experience now. So it's a way to signal the viewer right away. But then also, you see much more of the human body in a square format because you don't have the composition. So it's so see these people as shapes rather than just heads. And you don't have overs. Because overs began, movies used to be this shape. You virtually never had an over. Then they became this shape. Now the head was right here. And you had a half-empty screen here. What are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
You put a shoulder in it. And now everybody's doing overs. But if you go back to the old format, you don't do overs anymore. So there are no overs in the film.
Okay.
And the viewer senses that because they're so used to watching overs. When you watch the scene with this, boom, 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 and you realize you're never shooting over anybody's shoulder.
Okay. And my last question is from you. Is about the working with Ethan Hawke. How was the process of working with Ethan Hawke?
He was. Of course, he's a consummate professional, and he worked every day on this film. So, the best thing you can do is come in and be prepared on the dates because you know that, probably the day before he did 9 pages, and now he's got to do another. He's got to do another 13, and so. But because he had a great love for this character, he was really, he was accommodating to things that you wanted to try to. Get done in a scene from your point of view as an actor, and then he'd tell you where he was at it, and that was it, and you just go to work, and it became a real easy environment. Like he and once he trusts that you can deliver your part, it was fine. So it was, and I think that same for Paul. I mean, that's you kind of come into it wondering like, can I deliver what it is that he wants? And once you felt like you had his trust, it became, we were just gonna do some good work, and that's what every day became when we shot. It was just fun.
Okay.
Thank you, man.